I hope you're taking in all that fall has to offer. It's a beautiful time of the year, and we live in a beautiful part of God's creation. You know, as October kind of passes on into November, flows on, we have a lot going on. We talked about All Saints Day, All Souls Day. Usually early in November, we have Election Day, too. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I'm getting very interesting stuff in my mailbox almost every day. No, it's curious. I mean, I know there's some contested races that are out there, but it seems I'm receiving almost daily mailings concerning one or two particular races. And it's curious about, say, the advertising, or let's say the tone of the advertising that I receive in my mailbox. They seem to be going to great length to tell me, say, well, the other candidate is, you fill in the blank, you know, misguided, not for you. They even almost dance around with the word evil every now and then. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, I don't quite know what to make of all this. It's rarely any mention about what this person could do for us should they be elected. Instead, it's telling me more about what I shouldn't like about somebody else. What about telling me what you can do, how you can make our community better, or make our land better? Why concentrate on all the negativity with this? Whatever happened to people, say, getting together and talking about the common good and seeing how everybody can work to make things better? All these very negative ads I get in the mail every day, I just walk over to the shredder and just feed the shredder. I guess what's the phrase that comes to mind? Diminishing returns are setting in. The more advertising I receive, the less interested I am in what's going on with this. I feel for parents of our school-age youngsters and young adults who want to teach their children about, say, a healthy respect for democracy and how decisions are made and how leaders are chosen. I really feel sorry for them, because look at what's passing for public discourse these days. What kind of example is this to our young? With that as a backdrop, today's gospel tells the story of two who went to the temple to pray. And what did the Pharisee say as he marched up to the front of the temple to pray today? "Oh God, I thank you that I am not like the rest of humanity, greedy, dishonest, adulterous, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes on my whole income." Well, good for you. You should be doing more good things. But however, you're justifying yourself at the expense of others. Now, when it comes to the Pharisees, we know Jesus does not hold the Pharisees up as examples of what to do, or how to live, or how to witness to faith, or how to love their neighbor. A phrase I heard when I was young: folks, beware. You know, caveat emptor. When it comes to the Pharisees, caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. I suspect we've all met folks who are like this. Folks who are always right, never wrong. Who justify themselves at work, at school, in the community, even at church, and in matters of faith every now and then. Justifying themselves and the way things are at the expense of others. Now, you and I often tend to distance ourselves from folks in settings like this, perhaps because we've heard it before, and again and again. Self-justification is a bad habit to get into. Now, compare the Pharisee with the tax collector, who approaches God from a place of great humility in the back of the temple. "Lord, have mercy on me, for I am a sinner." The tax collector seems to have a very healthy and eyes-open kind of sense of who he is in relation to God and into his neighbor. The Pharisee, on the other hand, would substitute his view, his thoughts, his heart, for everyone else's, including God's, because my way is the right way. You wonder, what he thinks God's way is. I mean, let's recall with some humility that God's way is the way we follow. God's measure is the measure by which we measure, and God is the one who justifies. We hear something like this in our first reading today from Sirach as well, that the prayers of the humble remain with the Most High, who will respond, will judge justly, and affirm the right without delay. You hear that the beautiful heart is the heart that is humble, contrite, that does not see other hearts as less than my own or your own. Because humility is that healthy recognition of who I am with respect to God and my neighbor. Now, here it is, it's Sunday morning. It's pretty easy to point out this attitude in the Pharisees' actions, just as it's pretty easy to point out, say, the same attitude surfacing in some of the political ads I was telling you about earlier. Those things are easy to point at. But you might wonder, well, what happens when I look at myself? What happens when I consider my own examples? Do you ever find yourself convinced that you were the only right one? I mean, your spouse, your children, your parents, your coworkers, your neighbors. They got it all wrong. Let me set them straight. Again. And maybe you came to the realization a little while later, they were right. Again. And you realize that the thing to do is to go back and to repent, to say, I'm sorry. But the way our society seems to be right now, the climate is that we tend to double down on things, dig in our heels, and make ready for more battle. That needs to change. Do you have relationships that are in need of repair, are in need of some compassion? Maybe a change of outlook, a change of heart would be good. What would that take to happen? What would be needed there? As you and I live following the heart of Jesus during the week, can you think about how Jesus would encounter moments like that? Perhaps for us we can begin by being careful and attentive of others. Try to avoid justifying ourselves. And when responding to the Lord and responding to our neighbors, try to have a thankful heart, a humble and grateful heart. For our world is a very busy and complicated place. Still, for all the things we encounter, everything shouldn't trigger self-justification. Not everything is struggle. Not everything is not everything is battle. Heard a wise person say to me once, on some hills, on the top of some hills, there's Calvary, where there's sacrifice and there's death. On the top of other hills, there's just the top of the hill. Perhaps you should learn to enjoy the view and learn how to tell the difference. Let us make this walk with humility, as the tax collector did.